It's the first week of the semester. You bought the notebook. You set up the folders, color-coded, beautiful. You told yourself this term is going to be different. And for about 11 days, it is. Then something quietly shifts. By week 4 you're rereading the same paragraph at midnight, wondering where that version of you went. There's a specific reason that version of you disappears on schedule, and it isn't laziness. What nobody tells students is this: the semester you actually live is mostly decided in the first 3 weeks, not by how motivated you feel. In the next 12 minutes I'll show you 3 things: how your brain actually builds a routine, why the opening weeks of a term have a measurable effect that later weeks simply don't, and the 3 changes that use that window instead of wasting it. One of the 6 mechanisms coming up also explains why the famous 21-day rule isn't just wrong, it's backwards. I've deliberately saved that one for the end. Start with the part of this that isn't about school at all. Your brain runs 2 systems for behavior. One is the prefrontal cortex, the deliberate, effortful, decision-making system. It's brilliant, and it's expensive. It burns attention, it tires out, and it's the first thing to fail when you're stressed or short on sleep. The other is a set of deep structures called the basal ganglia, and their entire job is to take a behavior you've repeated in a stable setting and turn it into something you no longer have to decide. Here's the evolutionary logic. An animal that had to consciously replan the route to water every single morning would die of overthinking. So brains evolved to notice a pattern: same place, same time, same action, same outcome. Fine, I'll handle that one automatically from now on. The trigger for that handover isn't willpower, and it isn't desire. It's context. Place, time, the people around you, and whatever you just finished doing. Now stay with me, because this next number is the one that reframes everything. Wendy Wood, Jeffrey Quinn and Quinn Kashy tested how much of ordinary life this covers, and published it in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology in 2002. Their setup was clever. Participants wore wristwatches programmed to chime every hour, and at each chime they wrote down what they were doing, thinking and feeling, right then, in the moment, not reconstructed from memory afterwards. Then the researchers counted how many of those logged behaviors were performed almost every day, and usually in the same location. The answer was around 43%. Nearly half of an ordinary day isn't chosen. It's triggered. 2 ways to picture that. Physically, it's a path worn across a lawn, nobody designed it, enough feet crossed the same way and the grass gave up. Digitally, it's a shortcut button on your phone. Whatever app you open from that button first is what the button now means, and you never think about it again. And this is exactly why the boring stuff decides grades. In 2010, Marcus Creed and colleagues published a meta-analysis in Review of Educational Research covering tens of thousands of students, and found that class attendance correlated with course grades at around 0.44, a stronger predictor of performance than admissions test scores, than high school GPA, than self-reported study skills. Attendance isn't a talent. It's a habit with a time and a place attached to it. Now, pay close attention to this next part, because mechanism 1 is the one everything else sits on: unclaimed cues. At the start of a term you are surrounded by triggers that don't mean anything yet. A new desk. A new seat in an unfamiliar lecture hall. A 90-minute gap between 2 classes that didn't exist last term. A walk home along a different street. None of these have a behavior attached to them, and your basal ganglia are quietly watching to see what you do in them. Whatever you do in that empty gap during week 1, library, or phone on a bench, is what your brain will start proposing automatically by week 3. You are not choosing a study schedule. You are assigning meanings to rooms. Leave the assignment to chance and chance will finish it for you. But here's where it gets really interesting, because the same context change that lets new habits form is also the only thing that reliably breaks old ones. Wendy Wood ran that study too, with Leona Tam and Tam Guerrero Witt, published in 2005. They followed 115 students transferring to a new university, and asked about 3 ordinary behaviors: exercising, reading the news, watching television, roughly a month before the move and a month after. Strong habits survived perfectly well when the setting stayed stable. When the setting changed, those same strong habits broke, and behavior went back under conscious control. Bas Verplanken and colleagues found the identical pattern in commuting in 2008. People's environmental values only predicted how they traveled to work among staff who had moved house that year. Everyone else was running on autopilot. Moving house disrupts autopilot. So does a new semester, but only while it's still new. Here's the thing nobody tells you, though. That window only opens for the cues you actually changed. In 2011, David Neal, Wendy Wood and colleagues handed popcorn to moviegoers walking into a cinema. Some of it was fresh. Some of it was a week old and stale. People without a strong popcorn habit ate much less of the stale batch, which is exactly what you'd expect. People with a strong cinema popcorn habit ate roughly the same amount either way. They weren't eating because it tasted good. They were eating because they were in a cinema, holding a bucket, facing a screen. Given the same stale popcorn in a meeting room instead, they ate far less. Same person, same snack, different room, completely different behavior. So if you carry your old cues into the new term, studying in bed, phone face up beside the laptop, same cafe at the same hour, you haven't started a new semester. You've changed the date on the old one. And this is the part that changed how I plan my own year. In 2014, Hengchen Dai, Catherine Milkman and Jason Reese published a paper in Management Science on what they named the Fresh Start effect. They looked at real behavior, not surveys. University gym visits rose about 47% at the start of a new semester, about 33% at the start of an ordinary week, and commitment contracts on a goal-setting website jumped 145% at the start of a new year. A date on a calendar measurably changes what people do. Their explanation is that a landmark lets you file your past failures under the old you, and lifts you into a big-picture view where the goal outweighs the effort it costs. But here's the catch, and it answers the question I opened with. That is a spike, not a plateau. It's fuel, and fuel burns. Most people spend theirs on planning, the notebook, the folders, the app. Planning feels like progress and leaves absolutely no trace in your basal ganglia. Repetitions do. And if you're watching this in week 5, already past the window, don't close the tab. There's a way to manufacture a second one. It's the last technique in this video, and it has a condition attached. But wait, it gets stranger. Philippa Lally and colleagues at University College London tracked 96 volunteers for 84 days, published in the European Journal of Social Psychology in 2010. Each person chose one new eating, drinking or activity behavior to do daily in the same context, and rated how automatic it felt. The median time to reach a plateau of automaticity was 66 days, with a range running from 18 days to 254. But the shape of that curve matters far more than the headline number. It's asymptotic, it climbs steeply at first, then flattens out. Which means an early repetition buys you more automaticity than a late one does. The 20th time you sit at the same desk at the same hour does less for you than the third time did. Skipping your first 2 weeks is not the same as skipping 2 weeks in November. You're skipping the steep part of the curve. One more mechanism, and it's the one people get wrong most often. You can want something enormously and still not do it, because wanting is stored somewhere different from doing. Sarah Milne, Shiina Orbel and Pascal Sheeran demonstrated this in the British Journal of Health Psychology in 2002. One group received a motivational intervention about the health risks of not exercising, real information, genuinely persuasive. It produced no significant increase in exercise. Then they added one small thing for another group: write down when, where, and how you will exercise. That version had a dramatic effect on behavior. Peter Gallwitzer and Pascal Sheeran later pooled 94 independent tests in a 2006 meta-analysis and found a medium to large effect, D equals 0.65. A goal is a wish until it has a cue. And the opening weeks of a term are the cheapest moment in the year to attach cues, precisely because so many are still unclaimed. So let's settle the 21-day thing, because it's the reason this whole idea usually gets waved away. That number doesn't come from a study. It comes from a plastic surgeon. Maxwell Maltz, in his 1960 book Psychocybernetics, noticed that his patients seemed to need about 3 weeks to stop seeing their old face in the mirror, and that amputees reported sensing a phantom limb for roughly the same stretch. He wrote that it appeared to take a minimum of about 21 days for an old mental image to dissolve. A careful clinical observation about adjustment, repeated for 60 years until it hardened into a law about habits. Lally's data says 66 days, and sometimes 254. So if 3 weeks doesn't finish a habit, why do the first 3 weeks decide your semester? Here's the inversion. Week 3 isn't the deadline for your new habit to be finished. It's the deadline before your old habits finish claiming your new cues. The clock isn't measuring construction. It's measuring occupancy. Every empty gap in your timetable, every unfamiliar room, every new walk home is a vacant slot, and something is going to move into it, either the behavior you chose on purpose, or the behavior you defaulted to while you were busy color-coding folders. Nothing stays vacant. And that reframes what a bad week even is. Lally's team found that missing a single day barely dented automaticity at all, the curve recovered quickly. So a missed session isn't what kills your semester. A missed context is. So here's what to actually do with the next 3 weeks. Technique 1, one place, one job. Take 20 minutes today and assign a single behavior to each of 3 specific cues. Not, study more, the 2-hour gap on Tuesday, 3rd floor of the library, reading only. Desk at home, laptop, assignments only, phone charging in another room. Bed is for sleeping. You are doing exactly what mechanism 1 described, claiming cues before your defaults claim them. Then keep each pairing identical for 3 weeks, because sameness is the entire mechanism. That repetition in a stable context is the only signal your basal ganglia are actually listening for. Technique 2, write 3 when-then sentences. Literally write them down. When my 10 o'clock lecture ends on Monday, I will walk straight to seat B in the library and open the problem set. That's an implementation intention, the Milne and Gallwitzer research from a few minutes ago, turned into one sentence. Then add a rescue clause for the failure you can already predict. If I sleep badly and skip the morning block, then I'll do 20 minutes before dinner instead. The version with the rescue clause is the one that's still alive in week 5. Technique 3, and this is the one for anyone already past week 3. You can manufacture a fresh start. Dye and Milkman's data showed that the start of a plain ordinary week produced about a 33% jump in gym visits and a 63% jump in goal commitments. Public holidays produced a lift of their own, around 55%. No new year required. A Monday works. The first of the month works. Your birthday works. But here is the condition I promised you, a date by itself is only the motivational spike. If you don't also change the physical cues, move where you sit, move where the phone lives, shift the hour, the pull of the past drags it straight back, exactly like stale popcorn in a cinema. New date, plus 2 changed cues. That's the whole trick. So tell me in the comments, which cue are you claiming first, the desk, the gap between classes, or the walk home? Be specific, because specific is the entire point of this video. And if this made the next 3 weeks feel less like a mood you have to summon and more like a deadline you can actually work with, hit like, and subscribe to Synapse Secrets, where we unpack the real science behind your mind every single week.